Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good night, or good evening. Whatever time of day you're watching this, I hope you're enjoying yourself. And I hope you clicked on this because you are interested in the topic. Or maybe you're watching the playlist I have of all these videos, binging through it. Or maybe somebody sent it to you. Maybe you're watching the premiere because you're subscribed to my channel. Who knows? You know. You know why you're watching it. And I hope you're watching it with an open mind. This is part of a series I have called Fallen World, where every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time I read something that I wrote, and you can read along in the description. And it might be short, it might be long, depends on the topic. Today it's a little bit on the long side because we're talking about religion and religious systems and political systems. And I've talked about this before in this series, but this video is specifically focused on it, so it's going to be more direct. And it's going to be more focused on religion and faith as a concept. So, yeah. I think I might call it religion and faith, because it's more about that than anything else, and that seems like a more accurate title. Sorry for what I'm doing. Something was bugging me. I kept brushing past it on my hand and it hurt. Like a little piece of loose skin or something. Never mind that. I'm just gonna start reading, and after I finish it, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna elaborate on I'm gonna elaborate on anything that needs elaboration. Although some of us find our faith by searching, most of us are born into a religion. The way you see the world is always based on the strength of your faith, regardless of what you have faith in. We come into the world with faith in ourselves, faith in love, faith in goodness. We feel safe and loved until we don't. Every one of us has free will, so we can lose our faith at any time. We're malleable, so there really aren't good people and bad people. No one is stuck one way forever. It only looks that way when people continuously choose not to change. Even though we're all born with faith, we're surrounded by people who don't know what they're doing. We used our free will to step away from faith and toward fear, and we built systems based on fear. Over time, those systems expanded into the societies we have today. They're basically cults, running on fear and keeping people from the truth. No one knows what they're doing, no one has all the answers. We all learned from each other, and we've always been confused. If you think you found the truth, there's probably truth in whatever you found, but you'll never find a book of all the answers. Infinity can't be contained. Something as simple as love can't be complicated. The only way to find the truth is to remember who you are before you were exposed to people who don't know themselves. What are your values when fear isn't involved? I'm gonna have to edit that to remember who you were before you were exposed, because that's a mistake on my part. Yeah, so I can do that, no problem. The version you're reading should be the right version. I'm not gonna put a typo in the description. So I apologize for reading it wrong then. Anyway, my goal on my channel is always to be heard by everyone, and I don't ever want anybody to feel like they don't have a voice. I don't want people to feel like I don't get what their perspective is, or that I'm trying to preach to them the truth, or that I'm telling them like it is, and I don't want to offend anyone. So I have to be clear because I talk about a lot of controversial topics, and I have to be careful to talk about them in a respectful but still informative way based on what I've learned. And my goal is always to open a discussion. So, let's see, what should I explain? we come into the world with faith in ourselves, faith in love, faith in goodness. Think about what that means. When you're born, before anybody teaches you anything, when you're just in the care of the person you're in the care of, or the people, you're not thinking about religion or following the rules or being afraid of what happens if you don't follow the rules. You're not thinking about anything. You're just living with the knowledge that there is that sort of good will always win, that you're safe, that you're kind of in like a simulation, and none of the danger is real. So you understand that you are just here to have an experience and to learn, but you're not in any real danger because you're an infinite being and you're part of an infinite universe. You kind of just intuitively understand that your energy and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So when you come into the world and you have that understanding, it starts there. Everyone starts with this as a baby, but it can happen the day after you're born or 10 years after you're born. But whenever it happens, it's almost inevitable as you live in a world, a fallen world, uh, which is why this show is called Fallen World, because I'm talking about a lot of the issues that we have, that we're dealing with just as a society, as a species. And I think it's impossible to be exposed to this without questioning what you come into the world believing. So you come into the world, you have your beliefs, and then you're exposed to people who don't know what they're doing. At some point along the way, they forgot to have faith and they started operating out of fear instead. And it could be because they were exposed to something. It could just be because they made a decision. They chose fear. But the problem is that in the past, enough people chose fear that they were able to build systems that made it easier for everyone else to choose fear too. And in these systems, we all just kind of keep each other asleep. We all just tell each other what we want to hear and, feed the illusion. And we've drifted very far from the truth. We have all sorts of societies and all around the world, but they all have a few key things in common. Most of the major societies in the world and countries and systems are based on fear, and they don't really give you opportunity to heal and grow in a healthy way, because you don't come into the world and learn the truth. You don't learn to feed your creativity. You don't learn to feel safe and to value unconditional love and to live in service of love and to trust that you have goodness within you and that it's something that you can have faith in, and you can call it God, you can whatever it is, it's within you and you can trust that. But you can feed that, and you can learn to be more in tune with the world around you and nature. And if we all came into the world and started learning this, we would all be able to respect each other, to mind our own business, but to also take care of each other and appreciate each other's company, to look each other in the eye and see what's actually there without any kind of ulterior motive or, something blocking actually seeing that person, because you're busy judging them, you're busy trying to categorize them rather than just seeing them. But instead we come into the world and we're not taught any of that. We aren't taught how to be healthy, how to take care of our bodies, how to be in tune with nature, and how to have faith. We're instead taught to just be part of the system that's already in place and find our place, just be a cog in that machine. and the things that we learn don't really help us grow. They stagnate us, and we have to choose as individuals not to be stagnant, because we are greater than any system if we all come together to overpower it. But if only one person or only a couple people are taking care of themselves, then it's really only going to make a difference in their own lives. And they have to be able to try to help other people, but there's only so much you can do before it becomes that person's responsibility. And not everyone is going to choose that, which is the other thing I mentioned, is that no one is stuck one way forever, but sometimes it looks that way. Sometimes people just refuse to choose change, refuse to grow, to evolve, because they got comfortable where they were. And even though it's hurting them, even though they could be prospering and living a much more healthy and um, enjoyable life, they're just stuck where they are, and they're not going to move. And there's really no way to force it to happen, because it's not your job. Like, you have your own life to live, and you have people who would actually be grateful for your help, and who would take it and not feel entitled to it. And then there's the people who say, don't help me, and you help them anyway. You shouldn't do that. There's the people who constantly beg for help but don't actually do anything with it, and their idea of getting by is to just use other people to kind of stay afloat. But if you enable those people by helping them, you're wasting your own time and energy. You're violating um, your own boundaries, really, and you're not helping anybody. So keep that in mind, but also remember not to judge anybody. It's possible to tell someone that they're not making the best decisions without being mean. And a lot of people will deliver messages like that in a hurtful way when they could be delivering it in an empathetic way, coming from a place of, how would I want to be treated? How would I want someone to say this to me? And maybe you don't need to say it to them. Or maybe you just need to suggest it, plant a seed in their head, and maybe they'll think about it later at some point in their life. But that's all you really can do. So, make sure you're staying in your lane and you're not getting too involved in other people's business, but don't don't lose hope in people. Remember that people aren't a lot of religions teach damnation, the idea that you're going to get stuck. You live your life one way, and if you don't do it our way and be saved, then down you go forever and ever to pay for a couple decisions that you made in less than 100 years. You have to deal with an infinite number of years of pain just because you didn't make the right decisions. The idea that that is true is, like, it's unthinkable to me, but there are many, many people who wholeheartedly believe it. And when you look at these systems that we have, like prison, and you realize that we live in a world where people think that way, people think about you're good or bad, or it blows my mind that people can think about someone who committed a crime and say it's a good person, it's a bad person. And you hear professional people in courtrooms talking about morality as if they studied it, as if they're a philosopher, when in reality they didn't study anything. They just kind of decided on their own what is right and wrong, and then they're just going to try and control everyone and make sure that they're playing by their rules, which is not freedom. Freedom, if you want true freedom, you have to start with the idea that there are no rules anywhere and you can just do whatever you want. Right, that'd be chaos. So let's go from there. How do we avoid chaos while also having freedom? And I guarantee you, it does not look like what we have today. If you actually had that as the goal, you could just start with freedom and then make like one rule at a time and one solution for any problem that comes up. Like, not a rule, but a solution. Complete freedom, problem A, solution A. and then problem B, solution B, and you just go from there. You keep, as the problems come up, you make up solutions. If we went to a drawing board and drew all of this up, we could come up with a much better system. But nobody has any interest in doing that. It wouldn't take very long. It wouldn't take a lot of planning. It wouldn't be a big deal. But you know what it would do is it would take away the power of the people who are currently in power, the wealthy, because the way that it's set up, at least in the US, and I think pretty much everywhere now, is that the more money you have, the more power you have. And the richer you are, you're really, I know that some people will argue this, but you're above the law. If you're a certain level of rich, you can get away with absolutely anything. And there's really no system in place to keep those people in check, because they're the ones in charge of everything. They're in power, and and they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that their power is the only thing that they're interested in. They want to pretend like they care about you and taking care of you, but everything that you see is just a distraction. And there's all sorts of things. People get distracted on their phones, just focusing on everything but a solution to what's actually going on. And even religion can be a distraction. As I'm sure you've figured out, I am not part of any specific religion, because I think of religion as an attempt to contain something that's infinite. And I don't think that something as simple as faith should really be as complicated as the Bible, for example, with all of these specific details and rules and commandments and all these situations. There is truth in a lot of it, because, like I said, we have infinity. There's all sorts of things going on. There's all sorts of beings that exist, and when you try to understand it to a point where you're being really specific and rigid, you've crossed into the fear territory away from faith. So, because now you're getting nervous. There's no reason for you to have that specific of an understanding of it if you truly believe that you're in simulated danger, if you believe that you're safe, and that you don't have a reason to figure everything out for yourself. But even the idea of trying to aggressively read and understand the Bible, it's almost like you're doing something that the Bible would advise against, which is playing God. You're really not supposed to try and assume all of that responsibility. Sometimes you have to let go, let God, which I did a video on a couple weeks ago. And it's really important to know that, because God is not part of any specific religion. God doesn't have an identity or a name. God is within everything. The trees, you, anything that exists has God within it. But in that same truth, there's also potential for an opposite, because everything has an opposite. And we have free will, which means we can move back and forth on a scale between those two opposites. Are you channeling God energy, truth, unconditional love, faith, positivity, or are you channeling devil energy, which is like fear and anger, everything that comes from fear, which is this feeling that you're in danger and that you need to lash out so you don't feel safe. It's like a primitive instinct that has a use, has a purpose, because everything that exists for a reason. But we have to understand that sometimes, as humans, the only reason for it is to teach us to have better control of it. We need to have control of ourselves, we need to control our thoughts, and not keep acting like we're just victims and, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, and I have no control over these circumstances. A lot of people complain all the time. And if you have a victimhood mentality, you have to ask yourself, are you really a victim, or are you just more comfortable that way? So it's sad to think that someone would want to be a victim, but like I said, people get comfortable in stagnation. People don't like that they have to do work on themselves, and people don't like to acknowledge that they're living in a world as messed up as it is. Even in politics, people will say the world is so messed up, but I picked the right side. I have the solution. I made the right vote. No, you didn't. There is no right side. There is no right vote. It's just a complete mess. There's no us versus them. It's just ego versus fear. Ego is fear. It's ego versus faith. It's are you going to start living in service of light, or are you going to continue feeding darkness? And it doesn't always look like what it is. A lot of people think that they're being very light and they have their faith, they believe in a religion, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's good if you have faith in something, but when it's such a specific religion and you're like not open-minded about it, you put yourself in a situation where you're gonna end up doing something that you don't really mean, and it's because you lost sight of who you were and you started believing in that religion. But you have to remember that true religion is you. It's the God within you, and it's who you really are. That's why I said at the end, you have to remember who you really are, who you were before you were exposed to a bunch of people who didn't know who they were, but who wanted to act like they did and who wanted to tell you how to live and to make you feel like if you don't do it their way, something bad will happen because their way is the right way. And when you're exposed to people thinking that way, subconsciously, you don't even do it on purpose, you just start behaving that way. You need to fit in for your survival. And it's the only way that you're gonna feel like you're not in danger, other than having faith, is to fit in with everyone else. Because now you've shifted your faith from something within you, a light within you, to walk into a room of people who don't know what they're doing, and to hold on to yourself, your own values, and to be the one light in that room, or to start, fitting in with everyone else there. And there are a lot of religions that will say the same thing, and they'll be like, hold on to your religion even if everyone else disagrees with you. Hearing that from Christians, though, is mind-boggling, because Christianity is the most popular religion. Most people are Christian by statistics. Like, it's just a fact. It's not up for debate. When Christians try to act like they're a minority, it blows my mind, because they've never been a minority and they've never been oppressed. They've just been the biggest tool that these political systems use to control people, because you can use religion to get people to do what you want. And these religions that contain truth, which is why they've lasted this long, why people continue to have faith in them, they see the truth in it, but they fail to see the ways that it's been tampered with by us. And it's really unfortunate. I could think of like the example of somebody who is a Christian and then they have a queer child or something, and then they kick that child out of their house, or they not kick them out of the house, but just make sure that they know that they're not living life the right way, and make sure to put a lot of guilt in them for that, and say, one day you'll be saved, and I hope you fix your ways, and just things like that. And I love you anyway, but I hate the sinner, not the sin, and love the person even though they're doing something wrong. It's like, people say stuff like that and it's so condescending, and it doesn't make that person feel closer to you, it pushes them away. And you're choosing to do something against your nature, against your core values, because you've decided to be part of that system. And that system will tell you, keep these values regardless of the other people around you. But what you don't realize is that you've already made that mistake just by being part of that religion, that teaching. And there is no religion or teaching that is going to be closer to the truth than what you felt and what you knew when you first got here. So you have to unlearn all of this stuff that you've been exposed to and get back to who you truly are. And you know when you're feeding the light. You know when you're being yourself, because you feel it. It's undeniable. But unfortunately, people have been so badly brainwashed that it's never going to be as simple as just learn the truth, because there's so much work involved in unlearning all of that. There's so much that goes into it. All of these habits that we've created that are unhealthy, we have to go within and work on things that we're avoiding, what we're afraid of, and face our fears to overcome them. We have to work on our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, and we have to learn how to be more in touch with the world around us and nature to stay in line with the truth and to make sure that we're continuing to be ourselves. And that's not as simple as just learning something. That can't be done overnight, but you can at least have information like that nudge you in the direction of starting to make those changes in your life. And I think that's really all that I can say on that, because if you try to make those changes, then that's what matters. So remember that no matter what you believe in, there's nothing wrong with it. Just don't compromise who you are, and don't hurt people. Be open to seeing how infinite the world is and all of the possibilities that could make life so much more interesting. And once you learn it, you can't see it any other way, because it's all of these other things that you believed before seem smaller. They almost seem like they're just part of this bigger picture. But once you zoom out and you see them like that, you can see it as a whole, which makes it contained, which means it can't be the truth. The truth will always feel bigger than you, and you'll never be done learning. So I think that's really all I can say. Hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you will leave a comment and start a discussion or something. I never get any comments on these, but either way, I hope you enjoyed it. If you're at the end listening to this, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week at same time, Sundays, 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you can't watch it live, it'll be on my channel afterwards. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be talking about next week, but hopefully it's a good topic. Bye. See you next week.